Hello world, welcome back to the Raise Your RC, and we're doing it. We're doing the full review of the Traxxas X-Maxx 8S. I've actually had this truck for a while, about 8 months or so, and been running it, bashing it, breaking it, fixing it, tuning it, all that good stuff. Wanted to share my thoughts and do the full review. Now this truck has been out for a long time, I think somewhere around 6 or 7 years by this point. It did have a couple of different versions. They actually originally came out as a 6S vehicle. Is now an 8S vehicle. They realized the 6S was a little too slow, needs some more power. I think they did some durability upgrades as well. But this is the flagship in the Traxxas lineup. I think it's the most expensive vehicle they make. It retails for about $1,000 here in the United States. Prices vary overseas. I think it's even more expensive in Europe or Japan or something like that. But here in the US, $1,000, still fairly pricey. And the way this works is we're going to be reviewing it in 5 different categories as usual. I did make a few changes to the review system, so we give it a rating from 1 to 5 stars, and it's graded on a curve. So 3 stars would mean it's average among these sort of 6-scale electric monster trucks. 5 stars would be best in class, 1 star would be worst in class. And so we're going to see how it compares to other vehicles in this class. Things like the Armas, like the Crane 8S and Outcast 8S. I have a Outcast 8S XB. Things like the Sen Reaper, which I've driven. So not a whole lot of 6-scale monster trucks out there. I think something like the Losi DBXLE doesn't really quite compare. A little bit different vehicles, more of a buggy. There are other large-sized vehicles out there, but this is kind of that, you know, medium to large-size 6-scale electric monster truck class. The 5 categories are the design of the vehicle, the performance, how does it drive, how does it jump and land, how fast is it, how does it handle. We're also going to be talking about the durability, which is super important. A lot of people think this is the most durable RC car you can buy, bar none. We'll talk about that. Is that really true? We'll also talk about support and maintenance, which is kind of the livability of this thing. Is it easy to get parts? How easy is it to work on? How's the warranty? And then finally, the value, $1,000, a lot of money, and we'll see how that compares to other large-scale monster trucks. First category is the design, and as you can see, it's kind of got that quick release system like all the new Traxxas vehicles have. In my opinion, the X-Maxx kind of kicked off a new generation, kind of a new era of Traxxas. I think they introduced a lot of changes that are now standard on the modern Traxxas vehicles, things like that quick release body, kind of these quick release battery trays. They went for kind of like extreme durability with this vehicle. I think prior to this vehicle, they had things like the Slash, the Bandit, the Rustler, not super durable vehicles. They went all out in power. It is 8S capable, the most powerful vehicle that they sell. Also kind of went with this new bathtub style chassis, similar to what you might see on the Max, which came later. Double shear shock design. It does have sort of symmetrical design as well. Same shocks front and rear, same upper arms, same lower arms, same drive shaft. So kind of a vehicle where it's hard to tell which side is the front, which side is the back. And then it actually features some steel drivetrain components. It does have a aluminum drive shaft down the middle. It does have a center differential with, I think it's Mod 1 gearing. It does have metal drive shafts out to the corners, which not a lot of Traxxas vehicles have. And they did actually go with a new size servo, which is kind of a proprietary size. It is a large X-Maxx servo. Really, the Max is the only other vehicle that shares that size, but you know, they kind of went in a new direction there. And also have a center differential as well. That's a little bit unusual. They have, I think, sort of this fixed motor mount system where I guess it's kind of easy to set the mesh without actually have to use a sliding motor mount. So a lot of design changes that are kind of new. They also added some new technology. I think this was the first vehicle that had the what was it, self-riding feature. Maybe the first one that also had TSM, which was Traxxas Stability Management. So some new technology they introduced in this vehicle. So it was kind of a new generation that features a lot of stuff that, you know, pretty much every Traxxas vehicle since features. Now looking at it, obviously high center of gravity style design, plastic tub chassis, kind of bathtub shaped. It is dual battery, so you will need 2 3S or 2 4S packs. I did swap out the connectors. Normally it comes with Traxxas connectors, of course. I'm running sort of EC5 or IC5 style connectors. Things I like about it. It's easy to stock parts for this thing. It does use 17mm hexes, which I think is fine. They are aluminum axle studs, so that's nice. Some vehicles use larger size wheels. I guess technically you could take these wheels and mount them onto like a 6S 8-scale vehicle because they do use the same size hexes. Things I don't like the proprietary servo. I think that's a little bit weird. I think the design of the vehicle is a little bit more for durability and ease of like sort of ownership, because all the parts are sort of symmetrical. You only have to really stock one set of arms, one set of drive shafts, one set of shock parts, that kind of thing. So not necessarily best for performance, but it certainly does make it a little bit easier to drive. I do like the quick release body. It does kind of fall off a fair amount, and so yeah, on major crashes the body can definitely flip off. Can get a bit annoying, but it is kind of nice to be able to pop this thing on and off, so I kind of like that as well. The easy to set mesh thing, yeah, that's actually works pretty well. I did change the gearing on this thing. I think it's a little under geared out of the box, so I did go up on the spur gear, make it a little bit bigger, gear it up a little bit higher. I think it can take that without overheating. Design wise, I'm not sure it's really best in class. It's a little bit hard to work on. You know, pulling off the parts is a little bit weird. It does actually split into different modular sections, although you have to get parts from the top, you get parts from the bottom. You kind of have this fan wire that kind of sticking out. I do recommend probably using like an extension cable on that fan just to make it a little bit easier to pull off the rear end, get to that center differential. So front and rear differentials, again, kind of weird. You do have to remove a lot of parts to get at that center, the front and rear differentials. Not super hard, but I am actually referring to the manual a lot more on this vehicle to see how things come apart than I would on other vehicles. So a little bit difficult to work on. In the design category, I'm going to give it a little bit below average score. I'm going to give it 2 stars. It has nothing to do with the durability or the performance or anything like that. We do have different categories for that. It's just looking at this vehicle, working on it, kind of the weird elements, the weird servo size. It does have fans on the ESC and the motor, so that's pretty cool. It does have the center differential, which I like. It does have the all-metal drivetrain, although the aluminum center shaft, which I think can be a bit problem. I personally am not a huge fan of high center gravity chassis. I think you could drive a sort of low center gravity monster truck, that's fine. So maybe not one of my best preferences. But in the overall design category, I'm gonna get a little bit below average. I'm gonna give it 2 stars. I think there are better vehicles out there like the Armas, but certainly not terrible. Next category is the performance, and we'll start off with the radio, Traxxas TQI radio, which comes with pretty much every RC car they make, over $200. Solid radio. Some things I like, it does actually have the option for the Traxxas link, which makes it a lot more usable. Response wise, it's fair. You know, it's not really terrible, not really great. It's okay. Probably the greatest feature about this thing is that it is multi-model memory, so I do use a single radio for all my Traxxas vehicles. You know, if you've got 10 Traxxas vehicles, you don't need 10 radios. You can just bind them all to a single radio. That makes it super nice. Servo wise, slow but adequately powerful. Has not broken on me, so even though I think it's plastic geared servo, durability wise seems kind of questionable, but I haven't broken one of those, and seems totally fine for me. The VXL 8S ESC, again, not super powerful, but pretty typical for all these RTR vehicles. Certainly if you swap it out for like a Max 5 or something like that, you'll get a little more punch, a little more power, and the motor seems totally fine, no issues there. Power wise, I think you need to gear this up a little bit. Traxxas tends to undergear all their vehicles. You can pretty much gear them up a couple teeth or so. No issues there. Get a little more speed, a little more performance, and then you can do your backflips. I think you could even do double backflips with this thing. So yeah, a lot of performance there. Power is totally fine. Pretty typical for an RTR. Certainly you can always put in more power if you get some adapters and stuff like that. Not a ton of room for a bigger motor, but there are little optional parts you can get on the aftermarket to increase the motor size. Now the way it actually drives is rather interesting, because looking at it, it looks pretty much the same as the Max, which I think is personally one of the worst handling vehicles of all time. But the X-Maxx does drive quite a bit different. It's quite a bit heavier, it rolls a ton, but it's not really an issue with this thing. It actually steers quite well in the dirt. The tires actually work pretty well in the dirt as well. I think they're, not really needing to swap them out. You could get a little more performance with better tires for sure, but they are adequate for, an out-of-the-box experience. So pretty good power, pretty good steering, jumps through the air kind of crazy, doesn't flip particularly fast, so you can do your backflips. Not a ton of rotation in the air though. It is sort of longer. The tires are not particularly huge as well. They don't balloon a ton. They're decent tires for all-around performance, but not so much for stunts. But you know, it does jump and land reasonably well. Really, the main concern I have is you're kind of limited to how high you can send this thing. You will start breaking parts. Acceleration and braking is fine. Braking in particular is really, really good out of the box. You don't really have to mess with the braking settings. I think it's pretty much dialed. Shock-wise, suspension-wise, yeah, pretty good. I think the springs, you can use a little bit stiffer springs, but not bad out of the box, sort of all-purpose bashing. But if you want to do the bigger jumps, you probably will want to go with stiffer springs like I'm running. But yeah, performance-wise, I think this is actually one of its stronger points. I want to give it 4 stars. I think it's above average. Steers really well. Steers better than most of the other large-scale monster trucks out there. It rolls a ton, but that actually helps with the traction. It allows the tires to kind of dig in as it's steering through the corners. On dirt, totally fine. Runs quite well on pavement, totally fine as well. It tends to slide more than it flips over like the Max does. The original Max tended to flip a lot on pavement. This will tend to slide a little bit. I think it's just kind of due to the sort of weight and heft of this vehicle. So not bad in those sort of high traction surfaces. So performance-wise, 4 stars. I think you could always upgrade the thing. You could always tune the shocks, tune the disc, put in more power if you like, put in a faster servo if you like, but out of the box, this is actually one of the better vehicles you can buy. Now, a lot of people consider the X-Maxx to be the most durable RC car you can buy. I have the fortune of actually owning pretty much every basher out there. There's a few I don't from the smaller brands, but I'm very, very familiar with what makes for a tough RC truck. And I do like to send this thing 20, 30 feet high, just like every other vehicle. Now, the X-Maxx, I think it's pretty durable. They went pretty next level with this chassis. The chassis is very rigid, or not rigid, but it's like extra reinforced, has a bit of flex, doesn't really break all that easily. Now, if you're launching it Rich Super Bash style, you can break the chassis, but for most sane humans and 99% of the population, I don't think you have an issue with the chassis. The tires, I did actually have one of these unglue or sort of blow out a bit. I did have to re-glue one of the tires. But the main concern I have with this vehicle is actually the center drive shaft. So going down the middle, there is actually an aluminum center drive shaft. Under massive jumps, the chassis basically flexes, kind of bends, front and rear, and kind of bends that center drive shaft. You'll notice it when you land huge jumps, 25 feet high or so. You'll bend that drive shaft. You'll hear it making kind of a weird clicking noise as you're driving. Eventually it'll kind of lock up the drivetrain and you'll have to swap it out for sure. There are some aftermarket, I guess, fixes for it. I'm not running anything. I've just kind of decided to leave it sort of more at the 15-foot high jumps. And, if you stick within that range, I think it's fine. But that is kind of the main sort of Achilles heel of this vehicle. If you want to send it, if you want to do crazy jumps, that's one area you may want to look into fixing. I have broken other things. I did blow out a bearing. I did actually break one of the rear hubs as well. So they do make RPM parts with larger bearings. Maybe something you want to consider. The bearings are kind of thin, kind of small, or you can just swap out the bearings. I don't think it's a huge deal. But yeah, that is another area that can certainly break on you if you're doing those giant jumps. But durability wise, I've lawn darted this thing, launched it super high, did like nose crashes directly into the ground, did crazy tumbles through the air, landed like on the corners. And this thing is really, really durable, except just that one little drive shaft problem. I think otherwise than that, it's really, really durable. I do think this is the best in class large scale monster truck in the durability category. I'm gonna give it full 5 stars. I don't think you can buy a more durable, large-scale vehicle out there. Pretty much everything has got aluminum chassis. You'll bend things, break, chassis braces, break arms, break steering servos, all kinds of stuff you can break. But this thing is crazy durable. They did go next level, and it's still the king of durability within the 1/6 scale monster truck class. Traxxas parts are pretty much available anywhere. Any local hobby shop near where you live is pretty much going to carry Traxxas parts. The X-Maxx is a very popular vehicle. From my experience, yeah, this is definitely the easiest brand to own. Their warranty has declined through the years. Now it's only 30 days, and I think it's only electronics. Pretty much everything else is not covered by that warranty. Now, if you break something, They may work with you if they consider it to be a manufacturing defect, but if you launch this into a lamp post, driving 50 miles per hour down the street and you break an arm or blow up a tire, wherever, they're not going to cover you probably. Depends who you talk to, but yeah, for the most part, yeah, their warranty is very, very limited at this point. But they are available 7 days a week. You can call them up, you can email them, you can talk to your local dealer, whatever, get a lot of good support that way. They do have a pretty decent sort of upgrade or replacement policy for their electronics. I think you can get them sort of at like half price if you blow up an ESC. So you're not totally out $200 if you blow up an ESC. You do get a little bit of discount that way. So yeah, for within that regard, I do think Traxxas and the XMaxx has above average support and maintenance. A little bit difficult to work on. This is one of the more difficult vehicles I have to work on. I just find it kind of weird and how everything's put together and all the different screws you gotta attack from the top and bottom to get it at certain spots. But it's not terrible. I'm going to give it 4 stars in the support and maintenance category. Above average. Certainly the support size is one of Traxxas' strengths and an advantage over its competitors. The XMaxx sells for $999.99 or $95, something like that here in the United States. I think it originally sold for $800 or less, maybe even $750. I can't remember exactly, but certainly $800 for a long time, and it's been increasing price pretty much every year. It's $1,000 now, which is a crazy amount of money. I realize this is a large vehicle, but $1,000 for pretty much a plastic vehicle is a little bit excessive. I think some electronics are nice. Certainly this radio is above average. It does have more capabilities than your standard RTR vehicle. Servo is plastic. ESC has no programming options. Motor's pretty basic. The whole vehicle is pretty much all plastic for the shocks and the drive shafts and stuff like that. So I'm not really sure why they're charging you so much for an XMaxx, especially now it's been out so long. Certainly all those design and manufacturing costs have been recuperated by now. So my rating on value is a little different than most. It's really looking at what you get in the box and seeing what you're actually paying for. So if you're getting a box of, I don't know, plastic, and they're charging a lot of money, it's going to rate lower in the value category. Now, other vehicles within its class, the Send Reaper, I think sells for $700. The Armas are about $970 or so for the RTR, so they're almost the same price, just slightly cheaper than the XMaxx, but they are getting up there in price. The XMaxx used to be kind of the value leader within the large scale class. At $800, it was pretty good value. I mean, it certainly had the performance, durability, all that kind of stuff for what you got and what you're paying for. And Armas were always a little bit more expensive, but now the XMaxx, they've been jacking up the price, and in my opinion is a little bit overvalued or below average in the value category. So in the value category, I'm gonna give it 2 stars. I do think it's a little bit below average. Certainly other large scale vehicles are quite a bit cheaper or a little bit cheaper, and you see what you're paying for with those vehicles. You're getting all these aluminum parts, aluminum shock towers, aluminum chassis, aluminum braces, all kinds of stuff that you're not getting with the XMaxx. I'm not saying metal is better than plastic. Certainly for durability, plastic is better in most cases, but I'm talking about how much this thing costs versus how much you're paying. And if they're not showing you that value within the vehicle itself, then they're pretty much just ripping you off. They're just pretty much making money off you, and that's Traxxas' prerogative, but that's just my opinion on the price. I do think the value is below average. So my final thoughts on the XMaxx. What do I think about this thing? It's kind of a surprising vehicle because I actually got the Max first. I had the V1, I have got the V2 as well, and the Max was super durable. Probably still is the most durable RC car I own, but kind of underwhelmed in the performance category. It just didn't steer very well. Handling was quite poor. The shocks were pretty poor for the vehicle. Just chassis slaps a lot. But this thing actually is really dialed out of the box. I'm glad they came out with this thing first. I know the Max is kind of designed around the same elements, but I think they kind of screwed it with the Max. Whereas the XMaxx is pretty awesome. It steers well, pretty good power, jumps and lands excellent, does backflips through the air, crazy durable except for that center drive shaft problem. But other than that, excellent vehicle. I think it's a lot of fun. Obviously, I think it's a little bit pricey for what you get, and I wish they had maintained their sort of $800 or even $900 price point, but it is $1,000, and everything in RC has been going up, so I understand why they did that. Now, is it the best RC car ever? It's not my favorite RC car, and it kind of depends a lot on your categories or your opinion on what you think is important. For me, I don't need a massive, huge 6th scale or 5th scale vehicle to have fun. I can have plenty of fun with an 8th scale or 10th scale or whatever. So that part of it, certainly you can drive over more terrain, but you also need a bigger area to drive this thing. You don't want to drive this at your little local park and scare all the kids and ram into something at 50 miles an hour, because you are going to hurt yourself, you're going to hurt them, you're going to hurt your pocketbook, you're going to do a lot of damage with this vehicle. So you kind of need a large area, not a ton of people around, and that sort of limits where you can drive this thing. But it is durable, it is fun, it is kind of crazy. There's nothing like launching this thing through the air doing flips and stuff. It's really impressive from that regard. So yeah, fun vehicle overall. Probably still the best vehicle within the 6th scale or 5th scale monster truck lineup. I do have an Outcast 8S EXP. If you want to see a head-to-head comparison of that, let me know. I will make a video. Let me know what your thoughts are on the XMaxx. Do you like it? Do you think it's the best thing out there? I think Kevin Talbot considers this the best RC car you can buy. It's not for me, but I understand why he likes it. So anyways, don't forget to hit the like, share, subscribe, add notifications buttons. Look for more videos soon. Thanks for watching.